Today is an exciting day because I am going to open up my life a little bit and share about marriage and dating with sickle cell disease. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Dr. Simone Says. My name is Simone Eastman Yuan, and I'm a medical doctor with sickle cell disorder, and I'm also the best-selling author of the book, A Doctor in a Patient's Body, Dreaming Big with Sickle Cell Disease and Chronic Pain. But these days, I like to spend my time making sure that every sickle cell survivor becomes a sickle cell thriver because it matters that we live well. So, this week, about a few days ago, on the 22nd, on the 12th, we celebrated our 22nd wedding anniversary. That's where that 22nd came from. We celebrated our 22nd wedding anniversary. And, for us, we put God first and completely credit Him with how far we've come, how much we've had to learn along the way. But when I put the post out, I was surprised to see some things. Now, normally we do get, a large response and wishing us well. We have a lot of friends. But this year, something different happened on top of that. So, what I noticed was that people shared, and a lot of friends from my sickle cell community actually shared the post, and actually, many more cut and pasted the post and kind of said something about it on their page, and it was along the lines of just having hope for dating and marriage with sickle cell disease. And sometimes you don't know what you have until someone responds or kind of gives feedback on it. So I talked with my husband, who in general is very camera shy, but I wanted to have a discussion with him for you guys and with you guys. I wanted originally to do it as a Facebook live stream, but he's not there yet, so baby steps. So I thought I will do it as a video, and then you can comment, and we can even have a discussion later within the group, within the Bedtime Stories with Dr. Simone group, which is a support group that I have on Facebook. We can have a discussion about what you heard, or if you had any other follow-up questions. So, I guess we should probably, without any further ado, start. Now, I'm gonna tell you that he's not going. He's shy, so he's not going to come in front of the camera today. Let's just say the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. But I'm hoping that one day that we can do this. It is, as you know, my videos are not about interviews in general, so I don't plan on doing interviews. But I just wanted to shed some light on our marriage, open up for some questions. And for full disclosure, I did give him the questions ahead of time, but we haven't talked about the answers for the questions on how he is planning on answering. It's just going to, I wanted it to be authentic, and then I will answer, from my side as well, right? It takes two to make a relationship. So without any further ado, I want to just show you a picture of us. This is our picture. Let's see if I can get this right. This is our picture for our engagement. So this was 22 years ago, right after finals in my second year of medical school. I had this picture, we had this picture taken. And I love this picture of us. So we were very young, obviously. But I'm going to keep it here, and you're going to hear my voice and his voice as we have a conversation. Or maybe at some point I might pull it aside and talk directly to you, but we'll see how it goes. So let me start by asking the first question. Or have him introduce himself, actually. So, Anakin, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. My name is Anakin Yuan, the husband of Dr. Simone, and I am pleased to have this moment with you guys, and hopefully it benefits our listeners. So I look forward to hearing your questions afterward.
Okay. All right. So, my first question is, did you know much about sickle cell disease before meeting me?
Um, Not much. I did not know much about it. I had heard about it. The only time I did was about a classmate of mine in grade school,
Mhm.
and also that she's a sickler, but I didn't really know much about it. Honestly, I think um, I just thought that she just got sick a lot, and I didn't know what it meant to be a sickler.
Mhm.
And this is like age 10 thereabout
Mhm.
or younger. Um, so that was the extent of my knowledge of sickle cell. Uh, then after we moved on to high school, maybe college, I heard that she passed away. And so that was it. I had no other information, but that was the extent of my knowledge of sickle cell disease.
Okay. And how long were we seeing each other, I'll say, before we spoke about sickle cell disease? Do you remember?
Um, we, I think it was after our first date. I mean, we weren't dating officially
Mhm.
then, but after our first date, we were just talking about life, how we grew up, and it seemed, if I recall, it seemed to have come up by accident. Just growing up in the tropics, you know, me in Nigeria and you in Guyana, and then we talk about malaria, and then before you know it, you said that you haven't had malaria before, which surprised me. I'm like, what do you mean? And so you told me right there and then, that you have sickle cell anemia, and so um, that was the first time it came up in our friendship. So we went on to talk more about it, to the best of our ability, and at least the best of my comprehension. um, yeah, that's what I recall, and this is
Okay.
like some 24 years ago. It'll
It's
be
so funny how our recollections can differ. Um, it just goes to show you remember what you want to remember and how you want to remember it, right? So I remember it as us. I think it was after our second date or so. So we went on the first date, and we were we went to a restaurant, this Italian restaurant, and we kind of just got to know each other. So we were with other people at that point, and so it was just kind of like a regular double date. And so my recollection of it was more of a one-on-one conversation where we weren't with other people at that point. It was, and we kind of had gotten to know each other a little bit. We had many phone calls in between. So I had just started a summer program for kind of like the summer before medical school started, and it was a research program, as well as like a minority program for acclimation before medical school started. So I during that summer, while I was, doing classes and everything like that, would be kind of busy. And so our dating was kind of few far between, but we talked a lot on the phone. And so we had kind of grown fond of each other by then. And I pretty much knew that I was in love with the guy. And so my thing is, I want to look for an opportunity to be able to put my cards on the table before going forward. I want to protect my heart if someone isn't interested after knowing, about me. But then at the same time, you kind of have to know when to do it, because you don't want to do it too early either, when the person hasn't gotten a chance to know you and know what they're giving up if they walk away. So it's kind of a tricky balance, but by the time we talked about it, I felt like we knew each other enough that he could decide whether this was somebody, interesting enough that he would want to explore life with, or if, that was it. So it did come up by accident, um, with talking about malaria and everything like that. But I felt like that was God giving me an opportunity, to put my cards on the table. I am always looking for, I would find a way. So that was my way. I felt like it was handed to me. But oftentimes it's not always that straightforward. I just think when I look back, I'm glad that I got a chance early on. And I remember saying, and it was really awkward saying, like, so if I were to ever, date somebody, remember, we're not officially dating. And I thought, if I were to ever date somebody and then become interested and wanting to marry that person, I would want to know what their genotype status was, and I would want them to, like, have a blood test. And so we kind of just made it as light as possible. And I said, hey, the next time you're going to the doctor, ask them to check it out, and see what your status is. And we kind of just left it like that. My husband is indicating that he wants to say something. So hold on.
Yeah, the little piece of information to add is that I think she asked me um, what I thought, and I remember thinking, you know what, let's take it one step at a time. Let's move forward. I was definitely interested in her enough not to retreat. So I wanted to move forward. Again, okay, maybe I was naive or whatever. Again, remember very little knowledge, comprehension of what sickle cell was. But I loved her, and maybe in a very simplistic way, love will find a way, sort of a mindset. So, but I remember saying that, we'll make it work. Um, yeah, that's what I remember.
Yeah. So there you have it. So we just basically, I just basically asked him to get tested the next time that he was having, any blood work done, and he happened to go ahead and do that. So number three, what? So we talked about what you thought about what you heard, actually. So without actually asking you the question, and then what did you think before taking the test? And then what did you think after you took the test?
Um, I thought that considering, again, still we were not officially dating. It was quite early. It was quite, what's the word?
Bold.
Bold doesn't come to mind. I would say very, um, maybe, is it aggressive? I was like, wow. Um, hmm. Yeah, I'm like, are you sure? Are we that committed that I have to like take a blood test? We're not even
Right.
dating yet, you know. Yeah, so that's what came to mind. But I felt like I'm not sure if I'm speaking, you know, uh, in retrospect, or that's what I actually thought then. Like, you know what? I really like her, and I would like to date her, kind of have a future with her. But it makes sense from what she explained. The science behind it. I'm like, sure. Why not just do it now so that the results come out? We know where we stand and whether to move forward or to just stay and remain friends.
Mhm.
So it didn't take much to convince me to do that. Um, Afterward, I can't remember what I felt afterward, but it was just good to know. Maybe relief that things are okay
Mhm.
on my end. So um, that's all I could maybe recall. And I remember just giving her a call and telling her the results afterwards. So that's it.
I remember actually afterwards feeling relieved that you were AA genotype, and I also felt I remember you saying that you're happy that it was AA, but that if but then we went into the hypotheticals because we weren't dating
Mhm.
officially, and you said, but if I were dating someone and that I truly loved, that would not be a factor that yeah, that you would if you really loved that person, that you would that you would not let that be like the determining factor, that we would have to look for other options like adopting and things like that. And I remember and it very likely was because you were young and in love,
Yes, yes, yeah.
and
I was young and dumb, quote unquote. Again, remember this 24 years ago,
so
so less wisdom accumulated by that time. But yeah.
so I think that um at least at the time, though, to me, I felt like I did not feel rejected by you. I felt like you I already walk around with my feelings of wanting to protect my heart, because I don't want to have someone reject me for my DNA, which I had no control over. And so I think it meant a lot to me at that point to hear somebody say, if I really loved you, that would not be a determining factor, that we would find a way through. And I look at people now, interabled people marrying, people in a wheelchair or with genetic deficits, and I think love really does find a way. Oftentimes, we don't know exactly what we're saying when we say that. We don't know all of the challenges that will come, but but it's a decision like anything else in life, you make, and you work with it. So I remember feeling relieved. All right, so what did you think about having kids and adoption?
Um, I'm not too sure what my thoughts were uh, prior to being married, but I remember thinking after being married and seeing, because we moved in together after we got married, um, when I saw what your life was like, living with sickle cell, um, I think it brought a different um, side, a different dimension to the relationship, and the the frequent hospital visits or admissions, ER. Um, uh, I think I thought to myself, when the doctors would say it was a high risk pregnancy, life is at stake. I remember thinking to myself, uh-uh, I'm not ready and willing to lose my wife. That's a gamble that I'm not willing to take. Kind of like a child versus my wife. So I always thought to myself, and I still believe in it. Um, the child, I do not know. My wife, I know, and my wife, I love. Um, I mean, if it was a horrible marriage, from the get go, maybe it would have been a different take. Um, Maybe I wouldn't care much about my wife. Like, just give me a child and maybe be gone. To put it very callously. But uh, she wasn't. She isn't that kind of woman, and so it made it easier. It's like, I know Simone, this unborn child, that hasn't been conceived at all. I do not know. So I I chose not to care about that. Adoption, everybody knows adoption costs money, so that was far fetched. So that's my take on you know having kids.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Um, I think that I was, I guess I was the young and dumb one in this case, as far as having kids. I thought, hey, everything is a risk. I live my life, it's a risky life. And so, I saw how much my husband loved kids. We taught Sunday school. The kids were always clamoring over him. They always wanted to sleep over. Those kids are now grown up and still keep in touch with him. So he's definitely the kind of person that I wanted to have children for. But we had the conversation, and each time we would have that conversation, it was very hard for him to say yes, go ahead and have kids, especially with the doctors giving their feedback, and they would say it's a high risk pregnancy, and so that kind of further made it difficult for him to say yes. And over time, I think I made peace with the fact that my husband chose me over having children, and that was a really hard choice for him to have to make, but he was willing to do it for me. And so I truly loved him from a different place in my heart after that. As far as adoption, I think I part of me was afraid that I would not qualify for adoption because there were times when I couldn't even take care of myself, and I felt badly that I would go through this rigorous process and then pretty much have my husband caring for the child exclusively as well. But I, you know, so anyway, that's pretty much what I thought about it. Um, let's see. Our last question: have there been unforeseen advantages of being married, like little blessings along the way?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. I, I think that at face value, it's very easy to think of the spouse, the one with sickle cell, in this case, my wife, as, you know, the definition of marriage. Kind of like it's all about sickle cell. Sickle cell is a part of our life. It is a part of it, but it is not everything. Um, we have moments of laughter, we have fun. Especially when we're both in good health. There's no crisis going on, whether it's health related or non-health related. But the thing that comes to mind, the biggest thing for me is just personal growth. Um, my wife has, through the power of God, just made me a better man. I think, marriage in general, really, it just kind of like kicks selfishness in the butt. So for you guys, who walk into a marriage, with a selfish attitude, um, get ready to, get, selfishness kicked in the butt constantly. Um, it's not just guys; it's both men and women,
Mm-hmm.
especially those who are the healthier one, the non-sicklers. So that's something that I had to wrestle with constantly. I was like, oh wow, this is what it's like living with sickle cell. This is it. Everything is spontaneous. So, and I'm a very rigid person. Um, I don't like spur of the moment plans. And so when it said I got to go to the ER, I already made plans. I'm like, what? Now? That was challenging, and I'm like, but this is what it looks like. So I had to adjust. I had to pray. I had to get help from friends, mutual friends, couples. So dealing with marriage and dealing with managing sickle cell. So it definitely challenged my character, and we both go to church. She's spiritual, I'm spiritual, and she would call me higher. To trust in God, to grow. It's like whenever I'm weak, she will encourage me. So we tag team, we hold hands together to make sure we stay on course. So there's a lot of character growth. Another thing is she literally saved my life, not once, not twice, but at least 3 times. As her Facebook is the title, Dr. Simone. She is a medical doctor. So there are times where she has stepped in, to heal me, to nurse me back to good health, from flu to asthma to more serious issues, that call for me being admitted in the ER. So um, she she has saved my life. If I were to be continually selfish and walk away, what guarantee uh, what guarantee was there for me to survive, to have a partner, a wife, who would look out for me the way she has, to have the knowledge base that she has, you know. So there's so many things. I mean, character growth. Personal growth is probably the biggest thing, and she comes with a wealth of knowledge, um, whether it's like in the home and outside the home, which I cannot quite list right now, but health, personal growth are the two biggest things that come to mind. And of course, spirituality. We're a team, we're a partner, we're a partnership to continue in faith with God, because without Him, we'll be long gone. I mean, we wouldn't see 22 years. We wouldn't even see year one. of marriage. So yeah, we hope to see year 23 next year. So that's all
Yes.
I have to say.
I think just from what Anakin is saying, I think you can see that I would just say for the non-sickle cell spouse, that your spouse is bringing more than just sickle cell to the table. It's just like any other relationship that has serious challenges. They just come in different packages, in different descriptions. But if we all stopped and thought about it, we all have our sets of challenges. Some of them may not be upfront, and you won't be able to walk into the relationship being able to say, this is my deal. It may crop up as you go. Life happens, but ultimately it's a commitment, that it's a commitment to another person. It's a commitment to love. It's a commitment to God. And there's a scripture that says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. And we go by that scripture. I go by that scripture. I submit out of reverence for Christ because I want it to happen the way that God wants it to happen. And we have a lot of laughter. If anything, I make sure that for me, that's what I would say. I know Anakin shared his part. For me, I would say I make sure to, even when my body isn't working, my mouth, my mouth is the last thing. My mouth is the first thing to come back and the last thing to go. And I'm, always, sassing, sassing him, or, just saying something, not like seriously sassing him, but like just joking around to just keep things going, um, to keep things fun. And I think, just keep things spicy and to give. Like, just because I have sickle cell disease doesn't mean the whole world has to give to me. I recognize that I am married to someone who needs me just as much as I need him. And so there are, many opportunities to just encourage, to compliment something good that he does, all those little things that help build a person up. And I think that keeps the relationship going as well. I'm going to stop here because it went way longer than I thought even. But thank you guys. Until next time, this is Dr. Simone Says. And remember, you are a sickle cell thriver and not just a survivor. If you benefited from this video any at all, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment and share the link with one other person as your contribution towards the sickle cell cause. God bless and have a good evening.